Dear members, a warm good evening to all. On behalf of the SIRC, I invite you all for the speaker meeting for the evening. Myself, Sarvajit Krishnan, the co-opted member from the Auditing and Assurance Board of the SIRC, hailing from Coimbatore. On behalf of the chairman of SIRC, K. Jalapati, I welcome the speaker of today's evening session, CA Vijay Srinivas, to the August gathering. A few words about the speaker of today's evening. He's based out of Hyderabad and is in practice for more than 18 years. He's a master's in commerce and a chartered accountant. He also holds additional qualifications such as an insolvency professional, a certified information systems auditor, a certified fraud examiner. He has also completed a couple of certifications from ICAI, which include anti-money laundering specialist, diploma in information systems audit, forensic auditing and fraud detection, concurrent audit, and Ind AS and indirect taxation. He also holds a certification in cybersecurity. His area of specialization includes information systems audit, forensic audits and fraud investigation, fraud and risk management services, and data analytics. He has had various recognitions to his credit, which includes a co-opted member of the Student Skill Enrichment Board of the Board of Studies of ICAI. He's the secretary. He has held the post of secretary and treasurer of the ISACA Hyderabad chapter, and also been the secretary of ICAI Hyderabad chapter. His accomplishments include information system audit and review of IT framework for various banks and NBFCs, forensic audit of various listed and unlisted companies, fraud and risk management consultancy to Citibank, HDFC Bank, Axis Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, Cholamandalam DBS Finance Limited, etc. He has completed the ASM audits for State Bank of India, management audits for Union Bank of India, due diligence for various listed and unlisted companies as a part of acquisitions and mergers, microfinance due diligence audits as per RBI regulations, statutory audit, concurrent audit, and revenue audit of various banks, business valuations, guest lectures and workshops on banking frauds, Excel as an audit tool, etc. He's a regular faculty at ICAI with respect to advanced Excel. He is an empaneled as a peer reviewer with the peer review board of ICAI. He also shares knowledge through his YouTube channel. Some of his videos includes few minutes of audit and 2 minutes of Excel. With this words, I introduce the chief guest of the evening, who is here to tell a very important, to discuss about one of the very important aspect of the in the audit, the IT management. Sir, this session is over to you.
Thank you very much for such a brief, detailed kind of introduction. I'm obliged. Okay, and I again once again thanks SIRC of ICAI for giving this opportunity. It's been always a pleasure to be part of SIRC ICAI whenever given opportunity, and the kind of sessions what we get, because enrolled with various regional committees, in the sense NIRC and all, the kind of mails what I get from SIRC, it's very good to see the kind of topics they pick up and the way they make consistent kind of sessions, which really helps the fraternity and the times when it is required for at least the kind of changes what we are having in terms of regulatory or other compliances. The kind of sessions being held by SIRC are really appreciated. And yeah, without taking much time, let me just jump into my presentation and start with. Yeah, before I proceed with, obviously the disclaimer that nothing is being endorsed by ICAI, and it's all as in my personal capacity, and of course little bit in terms of professional, but may not be considered as judgment kind of thing. And whenever I give any particular example, it's not about promoting or soliciting any of the products. It's only for the sake of example what products I'll be referring in case anything is presented. And of course the topic what we are going to cover is so wide that sometimes you might tend to what you call mix up with whether you are playing a role of an examiner or an auditor. So the presentation what we are making here might cover certain points of examiner point of view, because obviously as an auditor I'll not be giving any advices nor will discuss anything about the quality or so and so, but probably as an examiner I might have to give advices to the management. So my presentation might include certain aspects of examiner as well, because we are speaking about the opportunities as well in terms of this particular thing. Now, before I proceed further, let me take up this particular one more voting from your people, so that it will help me identify. You can just visit this particular website, menti.com, and there is a voting. There will be a couple of questions in that. You please answer those questions, which will help me make the presentation at the same time also helps us understand where exactly we are. And as you keep voting, I'll present the results as well. So we'll take only 1 minute for this, not more than that. So request you to please visit menti.com and use the code 31145172. This can be done through mobile or through laptop, either way. So 40 seconds more. So kindly please vote. Just you need to visit that particular menti.com and enter this particular code 31145172. Yeah, I'm saying very few votes being polled anyway. Doesn't matter. It's not mandatory, but just to make the session a little more active, little more interactive. Because obviously in this virtual, the challenge is we don't get to see each other and we don't interact much. So probably this is one way of interacting. And proceed. We have the 2 questions as well. One, of course, asking whether you have anytime. Yeah, now I get it. Yeah, anytime you have participated in fixed asset register updating. And the second question is about, have you performed any type of asset management audit? Could be anything, non-IT or IT, any fixed asset register kind of, any kind of those audit. Yeah. So last 10 seconds, please. Yeah. So let me stop quoting, and of course, very few votes have come. Considering the number of participants, it's fine, but maybe it's still too early because no one would have expected immediately the first question in the beginning of the session. So anyway, so let me just present the results for you people the way. Yeah. So this is with regard to the first question. At least, I mean, let's consider the voting without around 11, of course. But majority we can see that very few have participated in the fixed asset register updating. And coming to the next question, like again, any type of asset management audit, whether it be IT or non-IT, we can see that the kind of percentage is comparatively very less. Okay, now let's proceed with our presentation with this kind of yeah. Yes. So moving ahead, today we are going to discuss a few points. I've just tried to list down those because this is such a subject which is more of theoretical. Because one thing, fortunately for me, we breathe audit. I mean, being auditors regularly day in day out, no matter what kind of scope we are dealing with, no matter whatever subject we are dealing with, when we speak about audit, we follow those standards. We make it as a regular best practices kind of thing. So nothing much challenging when I have to touch upon the subject of auditing. Okay, so but saying so again, how much it is different from the IT asset management, or how much it is different from the way I might face the challenges as an auditor, is one focus point what we'll be discussing here. So these are the points which I'm going to discuss with. And to start with, when we speak about composition of IT assets, okay, we know that various complaints speak about presenting a point on whether there is a disclosure about the assets or tangible intangible assets, whether it is CARO kind of point or any kind of things, where it becomes very regulatory kind of requirement to ensure that my asset register is up to date. Okay, but what exactly is this information technology assets or any IT asset? So I've just picked up a couple of definitions from this particular website, La Insider, as I mentioned the source. So it says about the equipment, IT equipment basically used for the data or information reception. Could be acquisition, could be storage, manipulation, management, whatever you speak about. Of course, includes those storage devices. Now, why I stressed upon storage devices? Now that we know that no more there is a local storage. We speak about cloud, we speak about various other kind of backups. Okay, whether it could be or differential or full backup. So many things we speak of in terms of backup. Of course, we have again endpoint kind of backup and all those things. Now, when we speak about these things, how much it is for our consideration when we speak about IT management of those assets, which includes the cloud storage. That's one aspect. Second, IT equipment, of course, when we speak about equipment, it also includes the software. Now, that is where another challenging area. That's where it requires special attention when we speak about IT asset management audit. Okay, unlike any other asset management audit. So it may not require a complete idea of the technology, but at the same time, I should not be in a position to buy whatever the client says. At least I should have an understanding about what exactly he's trying to say. For example, if I speak about so-called, backup point, like say you have this data center backup and you have endpoint backup. Now, if he says that I have data center backup, does it mean that it is protecting the respective laptops or kind of endpoint, whatever equipment? So I should be in a position to understand what kind of backup he's speaking about. Okay, unless I get the technical understanding of, I can't say that whether I've complied with that particular point. So that is where the technology plays important role in our case to understand those technical terms, to understand the purpose of that particular whatever IT source they are using. Okay, that's one point what you have to consider while going for this ITSS management audit. Okay, now these are the definition, and yeah, one more confusing area kind of thing. I mean, in fact, the kind of scope what we get, the kind of discussion what we do with the client whenever they say requirement saying that on behalf of SEBI there is an RTF audit has to be performed, or registered RTA agent audit has to be performed, or when we speak about the banks in terms of IS audit, funny situations I've come across where a couple of chartered accountants, they said like they have done almost like 250, 270 IS audits, and they have covered almost like 10 branches, 8 branches, 10 branches in a month kind of thing. Okay. Why I say funny is because I don't dare taking up anything more than 3 or 4. It's not about the time what you're spending on the IS audit, on the day of IS audit, but the kind of preparation, the kind of checklist, the post-audit scenario, the reporting, so many things will form your IS audit, and that's where it becomes challenge when we speak about IS audit. Now, why exactly we are discussing about IS audit? There is a difference between so-called information asset and the information technology asset. Okay, though more or less they are being used very loosely as interchangeable kind of thing, but there is a difference. Why? Because when I say about information asset, it of course it includes not just hardware, software, it also includes the data relevant, that is people, the outsourced services, like you speak about SOC1, SOC2 kind of compliances, and it also speaks about 27001 kind of compliances. Okay, so there's more focus on the confidentiality, integrity, and the availability of the information. It speaks more about the data. Okay, so information, because that's where it is meant to be an information asset, and we speak about IS audit, that is where we'll be covering more of the information asset management. But when I say about information technology, it's not about the data, it's about the way the data, as a particular hardware or software plays its role in handling a data. Could be manipulation, could be storage, could be communicating, any kind of those. Okay, so that is where it says hardware or software which manages the information, and the primary focus of the management will be the procurement, the maintenance, the support, how to deploy, and of course how to dispose of at the end of the life of that particular asset. Okay, so there's a huge difference. If you literally put it on the paper, you can see what kind of difference we are speaking about. Okay, as we proceed into the audit, we'll see even more detailed kind of differences. So that is where one point you have to consider, where we need to understand the differences between these two when we consider when we speak about ITSS management audit. Now, I've just mentioned a couple of discussion points. Probably just as I said, you might consider this kind of brainstorming, because whatever sessions we come across is that 1 hour, 2 hour of kind of sessions is just to ignite that kind of thought process where we discuss, we debate, we probably make a notes out of it, and then come with some conclusion that goes into the quality of report what we perform. Okay, so likewise, as we have seen the shift over from the way tangible assets and the intangible assets, I've just taken up this presentation, which is very interesting, the way the weightage has been shifted from the tangible assets to the intangible assets as we proceed with the time. Okay, as you can see, more of patents, more of customer data, more of software, everything has started playing more role as an asset than the physical asset, because more or less when it comes to physical, majority of the aspects have been either outsourced. Like even if I speak about ITAM, that itself is a process of outsource. Okay, you call it as an ITSM, of course, service management. Likewise, there are many areas which is being shifted over. Okay, now as the way we see a shift over of definition of asset from the, of course, not exactly definition, the kind of weightage what we spend on the tangible and intangible assets, so is the responsibility for us when we speak about these kind of audits. Now, these are the couple of discussion points. Now, should auditor be considered about the value of the data or information? Okay, because though we have a scope, though we consider an objective while we perform an audit, sometimes while we involve our different multidisciplinary team or by yourself also, as you keep in depth to the audit, you somewhere you come into the crossroad whether I should be considering this, because you might find it to be more material. Now, should I report it or not? Okay, so these kind of questions will keep on popping when, especially when you deal these kind of technical audits. Now, should auditor be concerned about the value of data? Should auditor be concerned about the adequacy of IT equipment? Now, should I have to say that whether it is adequately implemented considering the data what company is handling, or is it my responsibility just to see that whether the policy is being implemented or not, whether to go with the procedures or not? So these all checkpoints will come up while you practically involve into the audit, and you don't want to keep silent because you observe something typical and which is not, of course, as part of your scope. And this is where it becomes very sensitive in considering the way ensure that you are taking care of your scope, and also you are not held responsible for not reporting those kind of issues. Okay, now again, valuation of homegrown equipment, that's one more challenging area. When we speak about intangible assets, if it is bought, that's fine, everything is black and white, invoice is there. But if it is homegrown, that is inbuilt, in-house development kind of thing, now what are all things have gone, how is the valuation done, what are all aspects they have covered, how the calculation has been performed, okay, who has done the technical evaluation, all these questions will come up. As I said, again, the kind of scope what you deal with, that is more important. Okay, say for example, I just we have a couple of standards which might also available, I mean, helpful while taking up this particular call on this. As I said, ultimately the scope is what decides, but still there are a couple of standards which will help you to probably identify and report it in a separate format. Okay. Now, I'm just getting into the definition of ITA, what exactly, and there are enormous, I mean, in fact, there are roughly around 5 to 6 different bodies which indirectly or directly supports this concept of ITAM, and also helps in standardizing the practices, helps in regulating those practices by virtue of various standards and all. Now, this is one particular association, International Association of Information Technology Asset Managers, which defines IT asset management as a set of business practices that incorporates IT assets across the business units within the organization. Now, it joins the financial, inventory, contractual, risk management. So it's not just about the asset per se. It also speaks about other roles or other managements which are interdependent. So it might be vice versa. It will be IT asset management towards the others, and others the way they take responsibility of IT asset management. So that is a few important points what we have to consider while we take up this ITA. Now, it also forms process part of your business process management. That is where you see more of outsourcing happening when it comes to ITAM or ITSM. Okay, so as I've just indicated, a couple of examples where you say that no, these are the things which will help out identify what is that ITAM definition is about. Okay, now as I keep proceeding, I'll of course disclose what other bodies also expresses, but ultimately the underlying point is it deals with the life cycle of an IT asset while interdepending or communicating with the other roles of the organization, more to be more in detail kind of. Okay. So little technical kind of diagram what I presented, but just understand the gist of the entire thing. Okay. Now, when we speak about organizational strategic plan, that is where the scope of IT asset management will be considered. Okay. Now, throughout this, ultimately, it's about decision making as part of your IT asset lifecycle management. Okay, so that is a core of your entire process. So it not only, I mean, you would have come across people, the ITAM, IT asset managers evaluating whether business requires that, whether there is a return on investment, whether what is the cost factor, what is the life of that, what is the benefit business is going to make. Okay, so these are the important things. Now here, an interesting point, what we might come across is like, as we speak about these various kind of asset management, the question is, what is the interest of the management, what is the purpose of the management for implementing that, and what is the reason behind the IT manager, IT asset manager taking a call to go with this kind of thing. Because as you see, each one is having its own, each manager will have its own interest. I mean, someone probably look for some other cloud kind of application, some other might be interested in going with a different kind of application, someone might be interested in in-house build kind of application, whatever it is. But ultimately, what exactly is the purpose? I mean, why are they trying to address the business purpose, or are they trying to make it more user friendly, facilitate themselves in taking the probably performing their managerial functions kind of thing. So many a times we see this particular point where an application has been taken over a period of time, suddenly it stops at that particular place and they'll go for another kind of application, they suddenly go for in-house. Why? Because somewhere they are not exactly focusing on the business requirement. I mean, it's personal, I don't call it exactly as a personal interest, but as I said, the convenience, what they feel like as managers, they said, okay, this is more convenient for me to manage, to probably overlook the entire activities, and this is the kind of dashboard what it gives, or the kind of interactive provision what it gives to the users and all that. So ultimately, facility is different, the purpose for which you're taking that particular IT asset management software is different. Okay, when I say about software, obviously you have many more softwares available, which are, of course, you have your open source software also, which is connected to your endpoint. Discuss mentions about what exactly the equipment is doing, what is the ideal time when it is used, and all those aspects. We have many such kind of thing. Of course, as we keep proceed, we'll try to touch upon those aspects. But for me, more interesting is whether I'm ensuring my scope is being satisfied. That's the underlying point. Now, the second picture, what you see is, I think this we can take it up as an example to identify what exactly we are speaking about when we speak about IT asset management. Now, as I've divided this particular thing, you have system management, you have service management, you have IT asset management. As you can see, each of these three roles are interdependent. They communicate with each other. Okay, they are interdependable as well. Now, as I mentioned, service system management, service management, this is more of information system management. Now, if you have heard about the service management, that's where you SOC 1, SOC 2 reports comes to play, the kind of quality what they maintain, or when it comes to the outsourcing service managers. Or when it speaks about system management, we speak about data protection, the data control, the security controls, and all that stuff. So these two aspects are more in terms of information system management. And if I'm provided with an opportunity of IS audit, then probably my focus area will be, of course, I'll not be completely avoiding the IT aspect, that is the asset aspect, but more on the data aspect when I speak about systems management or service management. Now here probably I can divide, I can bring out three different aspects out of it. We have one information systems audit, we have one IT audit, information technology audit, we have another one IT asset management audit. Now, again, there's a confusion, like as I mentioned initially, we speak about information system, information technology. Again, you have this information technology audit is completely, it's like mother of all these things, which handles information system, which handles IT asset management. It's like a complete overall kind of audit. Okay? In fact, if you refer to maybe C&AG has released one manual on IT audit. Okay, there is an interesting point. They have mentioned that IT audit includes forensic audit, systems audit, internal audit, all those kind of audits. So they have placed more responsibility on the IT audit, and not just about information technology, beyond information technology, because they are speaking about evidences which can be used as a forensic. They are speaking about due diligence. They are speaking about beyond, like internal audit kind of controls. Okay, so that makes IT audit more broader in sense when compared to the other IS audit and IT asset management audit. As you can see, IT asset management is one module out of the entire gamut of IT audit, what we are speaking about. And this itself is a completely specialized. But what creates interest for our CA fraternities, we have been dealing with, of course, though majority of the people have said that they have not done this, but if I speak about asset management, or if I speak about asset review, or if I speak about fixed asset register reviewing and all, these are been part of my one or other audit. Could be internal audit, could be statutory, or could be due diligence. Anywhere would have come across this particular scope. So to that, if I can ensure that the IT aspect of so-called life cycle or the kind of policies, if I just try to bring that particular angle, that makes me a better ITM auditor than compared to any other professional dealing with this kind of audit, because we know the core of the asset management. You just need to understand those technical things which it deals with. Okay, so that's where, of course, as I mentioning the opportunities as well, what kind of opportunities what can pick up from this particular role of ITM. Okay, now I've just tried to mention a couple of implementation guide areas. Okay, what exactly this ITM deals with? Okay, what are those important areas? Now, I've just listed down key areas, which of course I've taken it from InSource now. Create a program process throughout all phases of your asset lifecycle. Now, why again I'm stressing more on the technical part of ITM, as I was mentioning throughout. I may not be concerned about the way I perform my audit, because it just I need to make up those things which technically it adds the IT kind of thing. But if I can understand the ITM goal better, that makes me a better auditor, as in so that now I can review a complete detailed kind of asset management. Okay. So for that, if I can go through the technical aspects of ITM, that will help me out to be a better auditor of ITM. Okay. Now, what are those key areas? I've just listed on 12, which of course is called as a best practice library. Create a program process throughout all phases of your asset lifecycle. Now, when we speak about process, again, it could be a what we call automated kind of process, so-called applications or softwares what they use, or be part of your reviewing mechanism where it goes through your, just like your ERP kind of thing, or even if it is asset lifecycle, it can be made as part of my ERP somewhere, so that I can bring up those procurement modules. Along with that, I also consider the maintenance, the deployment, the support, and of course disposing of all those things. So if I can create such a program process throughout each of the phases, one, I'm tracking, because all your applications, what ITM applications what you speak about, those are endpoint kind of applications which highlights each and every activity happening at the endpoint. Okay, kind of dashboards what you get to see, and determine how the program will be managed following the best practice. Of course, it's a blueprint, what I was mentioning about the process what we speak about, that is how it has to be basically. And then once I have ensured that this is what the process I'm going to follow, based on that I'll define my policies, saying okay, this is how it has to be managed and what is involved, who are all involved, how it is going to be supported, and all that points I'll make out of the process. Once I've ensured that these are the life cycle processes, then based on that I'll create a policy for the management. Okay, now once I create this particular policy and the process, obviously the most important point is how you are going to communicate. Okay, how you are going to create awareness, how you are going to implement that. Okay, without all those things, whatever you are speaking, it's just on the paper. So again, the kind of communication, whether it is like there, of course, there also again you have alert mechanisms, you have regular training, you have FAQ systems, all those things. Okay, a kind of grievance mechanism system kind of thing. All those things we have. 1 second, someone in the chat area. Yeah, sure. So questions will be taken at that. Yeah. So so what kind of communication mechanism I'm using to create the awareness of the policies what I've created? Okay. Now, project management is altogether a role which can ensure that all this, the policy, the process, and the communication aspect has been taken care. And this is where the points, and point number 6 onwards, the auditor will be much more interested, because policies, process, whatever it is there, the only way to establish those is kind of documentation what we have, or the kind of observation what we see, and of course based on the interview, if I can match with the observation and the documentation, that's where I ensure that yes, this process what they have mentioned is properly being implemented. Okay, So again, the document management, that is where your ERP or the cloud storage system comes into play, the purchase records, the licenses, certification, and again, there will be a technical aspect when I speak about licenses. In fact, there's a very interesting aspects when we come across this software management. I see a reply saying that, yes, of course, we have this license. And if I go for a detailed question, whether it is a purchase license, a product license, or what you call a subscription model, or how regularly it is being renewed, or what are those, how many licenses you are eligible for, every system is installed with the same thing, are you eligible? Now, if you pose all these questions, you find that they don't have much clarity about it. It's just that they purchased one particular license, and they are not sure what is the life cycle of that particular license, what is the life in terms of subscription model, how many licenses are eligible, because these are the things once you get into technical, all these points form part of your documentation. If I say that they have acquired one particular license, let's say, for example, a firewall license has been taken, an application firewall kind of license, or probably something, and they install it across all the devices, and I get to see that that's an organizational license which is eligible for installation at one particular place, only one endpoint or one system, then obviously that's a deviation of the ITAM, is it not? So these are the things which, as we get into the details, I need to consider before I form an opinion on the quality of ITAM. Now, financial management, as I said, as we have seen in the earlier presentation slide, saying that there are very many interchangeable or probably very different management roles which interact with each other. And financial management, it's a core, because obviously, if an ITM has to convince the management, in fact, there are a couple of best practices. What they suggest that the ITM should be in a direct communication with the management, should not have any mediators in between, should be directly communicating, for the reason that he should be in a position to convince whatever investment they are speaking about, what is the ROI, all those aspects. ROI could be monetary, or could be the benefit what business derives out of those ITM model and all. Now, this is where the budgeting, the reconciliation, the future broadcast, whatever they plan for, how it is going to impact, or what is the business benefit, what it is going to derive, all those things will form part of my financial management. Yes, of course, IT audit. When I say about audit, again, there are again various ways. As we get into the audit module, audit slide, we'll get to see that audit, it's either part of your internal audit, or there is a separate team which takes care of this audit, whether audit is happening as an auto module by virtue of some application, or there is an external source which conducts this audit, and all those aspects. Okay, when we speak about ITM start, many other scopes creep in. Yeah, of course, the benefit what we speak about when I speak about ITM, what is that we are looking for? Obviously, to keep a track of all those things, stay on the top of the vendors, get the benefit to the business, all those things, and of course other processes what you can think of managing. This we'll cover in the life cycle part, where we speak about the process of identifying, disposing, and all that stuff. Okay. So end to end, this is what the implementation guide, the 12-point key area implementation guide, which the association has suggested to make it as a better ITM model. Okay. Now, once we identified that this is the ITM model, what I'm going for, and what are the roles and responsibilities. One second. Okay, so the Gartner has presented these 7 roles of IT asset manager, but otherwise you can just focus on this roles of IT asset management. As you can see, there are primary ITM roles and there are complementary. Okay, this we have seen in the earlier presentation also, what each role plays when it comes to IT asset management. Now, because IT assets deals with communication of data and information, obviously your information asset manager and hardware, software, the kind of configuration manager, IT asset owner. Again, what exactly the IT asset owner? Do we consider IT asset owner as a management? Not exactly. IT asset owner is the one who uses that particular asset. Like if I'm saying that as an employee, as a finance manager, if I'm using a laptop, I'm the IT asset owner of that particular laptop in the organization. So that role plays important. What is my role as an IT asset owner, or what ITAM has to consider while placing placing him into the role of an IT asset owner, who are all designated to be IT asset owner kind of thing. Okay, because when we speak about disposing of, all those aspects comes into play of unlinking those IDs and all that stuff. IT asset analyst, obviously the usage pattern, and I need to keep track of course, we speak about the life cycle, and I need to keep a close watch on the IT asset as well. So I need to analyze the past performance, the usage, and accordingly I need to plan. Of course, the cloud asset manager is a new role which has created maybe last 4-5 years it's picking up, because that itself so many aspects cover, like data segregation, data classification, and whether it is a direct backup or various things, as I was mentioning about, or endpoint backup kind of thing. Okay, now these are the roles which are directly depend on the ITM, okay, which are directly interacts with a particular IT asset manager. Okay, now there are complementary ITM roles which some other way interact and also be part of the ITM. Obviously, auditors. When I say about auditors, those who are dealing with the asset management audit as part of internal or external, either way. And you have legal aspects, because we speak about licenses, we speak about ownership, all those things, and you speak about data protection, all those things. Then you have the legal aspect also coming into play, and financial. Anyway, we have mentioned this. And service manager, ITSM service manager, this is one role which has been identified by NIST and all those entities which deal with ITAM kind of framework, whatever. And this is one of the key area of ITAM, ITSM, that is service manager. And of course, ITM consultants, as I said, whether it has to be an application or an in-house kind of thing, all those roles also play, because if I'm taking an external help while monitoring certain assets kind of thing, then probably I might have consultants. The consultant's role is not only to monitor, they might also advise on the ROI policy or kind of what you call value to the business kind of thing. Automation analyst, service desk manager, these are the few things. Suppliers, contract manager, of course, they are going to play, because when we speak about procurement, all those things, these people are going to play coming to the place. Okay. Now, as an IT asset manager, though earlier we have mentioned about what kind of implementation guide we have to follow, and as an IT asset manager, he has a crucial role in not just taking up the policies and all, many more. As we see, communicating policy, there's an IT asset management policy, that's fine, but what exactly is the communication model? What is the communication policy as an IT asset manager? Because we speak about the primary roles and complementary roles, and how to interact with each of those. That's where your communicate policy plays into role. And governance, more important, as we have seen RBI through cybersecurity framework, they have mentioned this one of the base points when it comes to IT asset management. Not only the IT asset management, various things they have come across. In fact, a couple of banks are also came out with RFPs asking for this kind of roles. Okay, so governance, external governance, and of course internal as well. When we speak about governance, it's not in terms of regulatory, also internal. How is that the governance is playing, or IT governance is playing a role? I mean, how I'm going to implement the IT governance when it comes to IT asset management. So those policies also to be considered as part of this. And of course, you have the process and reporting point and all. Now, identify, assess, and quantify risk. This is very much important, because the purpose of entire ITAM is obviously to ensure that there is a proper communication of data happening through IT asset, and also you need to ensure that there is a proper protection through that particular asset. And also I need to ensure that whatever investment I made in that is giving some valuation. So I need to evaluate that, and also project what kind of risk mitigation I have done. Okay, so there's a cost benefit what I have to perform as an ITM, because if I have to convince the management saying that okay, this has been successful, the only way is to identify what is that risk I've quantified, and what is the worth this ITAM has played added to the business value. Yeah, and of course facilitate and track remediation, the way I was speaking about the communication, and also the tracking those endpoints and all. And assign assets and responsibility for management. These are all various series of approval process. Usually I need to identify the usage of the asset, overall eligible to use, and what is their role while using the asset. And once I've done that, obviously as a physical ID and of course the logical ID what I create apart from that using the ITAM application. And I also ensure that there has been I mean not deviated, I mean the sharing aspect and all are not deviated. And once I have done that, obviously to as I was mentioning about RBI compliance and all, where I have to say that I've complied with this particular thing, obviously I have to create those evidences. Could be audit trails, could be logs, could be a documentation evidences where there is a series of approval process, right from what you call order requirement till the asset procurement kind of thing. So every aspect has to be documented. And documentation, that's where many entities, they have shown interest in going for ITAM applications for the reason that it not just ensures a regular communication and also creates the required audit evidences so that whenever required, I can present those to the regulators. Yeah, of course, make the team and work. That's what the main role, obviously, when you are dealing with not just your own role, you are also dealing with other roles as well. So that makes it quite a challenge to make a team and also work together with those roles. Okay. So this is more about the roles of an IT asset management. Now moving towards the responsibilities. Yeah, I might sound little technical. I'm not sure if in case you have anything anything with regard to this. Of course, we can take up the question and answers at the end. But if in case you have something, please mention in the chat area so that if I have to highlight something, I can go. Yeah, again saying so. Why I'm trying to be more technical is obviously if I can understand the process, the entire ITM process, that will help me out to be a better ITM auditor, because the core strength is anyway there with regard to that. But if I can understand the actual process, then that's where it will be evaluated. Now, what exactly is the responsibilities? Now, in simple terms, an IT asset manager is responsible for the management and maintenance of an organization IT assets. Okay, as simple as such. And of course, there is when you speak about the workflows, it consists of the planning and procurement, the project management, technical support, and tracking of assets. So this is an overview kind of what exactly the responsibility of asset manager. But if I go at a micro level, okay, so there are many things, because when I plan or when I suggest this particular what you call a particular role, or when I suggest a process to the management, I need to project a strategy. Why exactly I'm doing this? What is the support I'm creating to business while ensuring this IT asset management? Okay, then that strategy, whatever I have to be properly converted into a policy, and thereby once I've done the policy, then of course I'll get with the implementation part. As I've highlighted with the different colors over here, there's a planning stage, you have a strategy and the policies. Then once it is through, then you go with the implementation. Once the management approves and goes with the budget, you have an implementation cycle, where within implementation, again, you have asset life cycle, which altogether is a separate module by itself. Okay, there are various stages which we'll see in detail, a completely different module itself. Then after that, what are the process? Because when we speak about asset life cycle, it just deals about a particular asset individually. Then to bring it to my ITAM, there will obviously a series of processes involved to make part of my business model. Then obviously when we speak about the process and the asset, there are the users as well, the owners or user, whatever it is. So that's where the people. So how to get these three roles into a line? That's where you speak about implementation. And management and control, that's where you're responsible for. Of course, you have to ensure that the stakeholders, whoever it is, it could be users, could be owners, could be vendors, could be service providers, could be application developers, anyone. All those stakeholders, you need to ensure as an ITAM, you're matching up each of those requirements, you're satisfying each of those requirements. And so that's where the management of stakeholder comes into place. Then the reporting, obviously, when we say about reporting, it's not just one-time activity, it's day in, day out, it's a regular thing which happens through application, of course. Then otherwise also, because there will be a deadline, there will be a timeline saying that if I'm going for this ITAM, if I convince the management, then they might say that they want to see the results at the end of maybe 1 quarter or 2 quarters. Then I have to prepare those analysis out of whatever I've done. As I was mentioning in the earlier slide also, I make the analysis out of it and break in report, present it to the management or the governance. Okay, and based on those, obviously, if I get a feedback of any improvement or even otherwise, I self-assess and found that there are certain responsible improvements have to be done. Then accordingly, I take care of those improvements as well. I'm sorry, I've missed out that P over here. This is a complement compliance. Obviously, when I speak about compliance, it could be the internal or the regulatory or framework related compliance is what you have to ensure. And ultimately, the social responsibility also plays. Sorry for the spelling mistakes over here. And yeah, obviously, the social responsibility also plays, because I take so much of what you call, I need to consider all the stakeholders, could be external as well, while I'm taking up this IT. And when I speak about disposal also, there are a couple of things what you need to consider when it is asset disposal. So where you have to be very cautious in terms of social responsibility. Okay. So overall, these are the responsibilities of IT asset manager. Okay, as you can see, the simple terms is what maybe once I get into an ITAM audit, I might find out a right person to question. As part of my ITAM, obviously I'll be conducting interviews. So which part I shall be questioning the ITAM as a IT asset manager, or which part I should be questioning the IT asset owner, or which part I should be questioning the service manager, and all these points which will be helpful if you know exactly what is the role of an IT asset manager. So you can design your questionnaire accordingly. Now, one second. Okay. Now, there are various stages. This is just a high-level kind of process flow, what exactly the ITM process involves. And I've also taken up the help from one of the websites. There are these 3 stages of high-level process flow. Of course, once you get into that, you will see that there are detailed kind of stages involved. But initially, the IT asset procurement, which is very much important, the initial selection of the asset, the various bidding process and vendor identification, the KYCs, and all those, the tendering process, all those, whatever you have in terms of IT asset, the regular asset procurement, what you conduct in case of regular asset management audit, that is also going to be here. Only thing is that when we speak about IT here, I'll also display probably the RFP of Bank of India. They have published in the last July. Where is in fact, that is one area which will be very interesting if you are interested. I mean, if you are going with this kind of subject of ITAM audit and all, I suggest, apart from the standards or the framework, whatever you have, I suggest you banks now and then, or for that matter any certain NBFCs or public sector companies, they come out with this RFP with regard to roles of ITSM and ITAM. Now, if you study the RFP process, they'll put certain technical requirements. Now, if you go through the technical requirements, you'll understand what exactly they are looking as an ITAM role. And maybe that's where you also try to match up with, once you get into an audit, what is those points you need to consider while performing an audit. So I suggest you go through those RFPs, which will be more detailed, saying that what is the what exactly is the ITAM role they are looking for when it comes to software patches or any inventory management, asset inventory management, and all those things. Okay. Of course, I have one. I'll be disclosing after maybe once we get into the audit module. Now, yeah, asset procurement and more is the way you set up and training. That is more one of the important area. In fact, asset life cycle management. This is one of the crucial areas about training, because the IT asset owner is responsible. And he may disclaim saying that the training is not proper, so obviously he's not aware of the particular asset management. Okay, so obviously once you have identified the asset owners, you need to conduct a proper training, awareness training kind of thing. And if only that everything is proper, everything is in line, right from acquisition, approval, all those in training, then only you consider that to be asset in use, ready for use. Okay. So that's about the procurement module. Then you go to the change management. Obviously, there will be certain updations. There will be a change in the versions, or there will be change in the asset per se. So all those will be forming part of your change management. Somewhere it takes the part of your procurements also into that. But obviously, to go for this change management, again, it's a series of steps what I have to perform now. Once I've identified that, okay, there is a change required over here, then I go for the disposal or the replacement. Now, as you can see, these are the three phases, important phases of any particular ITAM, any particular IT asset. Now, asset disposal, termination of use, environmental disposal. This is where the social responsibility I was mentioning about. Data wiping, okay, data protection, the IS part, whatever we speak about, and identification of the need for replacement. Now, regularly we deal with replacement in terms of life cycle, saying that the asset is depreciated. Like say, if I speak about laptop, they might say that 2 year is a life or 3 year is a life, or maybe router has a 1 year life kind of thing. Okay, I might decide the life based on the, of course, the policy what I follow, maybe a warranty system or maybe a technical evaluation internally what I conduct. But otherwise, I do have a policy saying that I'll be scrapping this asset. I'll be the life of the particular asset be ending on that particular point of time. Now, once I've identified that particular thing, I have to make it part of my ITM process because I just can't replace the asset just like that. Okay, this is one crucial area. In fact, in banks, we found this in many during many many audits, saying that they procure asset and it will be lying over there. There'll not be any implementation of that asset. Okay, so whether asset which has been procured and not put to use for 1 year, what are the technical aspects of that? Because a warranty starts from the day of purchase or the date of your invoice. Now, what is that impact is going to have in my life cycle of the asset? Or second, when I speak about the what you call data wiping or shredding kind of thing, what are those steps I have to consider? Like as you have seen, replacement just goes with the regular procurement model. So there is an issue with the router, they'll get an approval from the HO, they'll replace the router, and immediately they'll system admin comes and or whoever it is, technically hardware guy, he'll replace that particular with the new router, and second router will be lying somewhere in the manager's cabin and all. Now, as part of my systems audit in banks, what so-called systems audit of banks, what we conduct, or at least the kind of crazy numbers what a couple of chat takers were mentioning about 100, 200 IS audit. But did we consider these particular point, or have you ever gone through the checklist which specifically speaks about the IT asset management? Okay. Now, what if I don't have a policy of asset disposal or replacement? Now, is it not a risk, or is it not the deviation of ITAM policy? What banks are mentioning, not only bank, any other organization. Okay. So, apart from the policy, the process, the kind of disposal mechanism, the replacement mechanism, all those points plays an important role. In fact, throughout your ITAM, in fact, I've gone through a couple of what you call public reports published in various other, of course, other parts of the world, done for the government of maybe Australia, Canada. So those reports, if you go through, majority of the comments were on this particular area, saying that there is no proper mechanism of asset disposal or the replacement. Rest of all, everything is fine when it comes to procurement, change management, everything, policies, procedure, documentation, everything is in line. But when it comes to asset disposal, a couple of places they don't have a policy, or if they do have a policy, there is no proper procedure, or if there is a procedure or there is no proper evidence which says that that has been taken care. Now, this is one area. Even otherwise, if you have anytime compare with your regular audit, what we do, a regular asset management, maybe non-technical, you would have come across these kind of issues. I mean, the situation. I mean, I can probably refer to a couple of hospitals where they would have imported equipment from China. I mean, it lying there maybe for 1-2 years without even opening the pack. What kind of impact it might have on the life? And you're speaking about a non-IT asset, that's the situation, and an IT asset which plays so crucial on the data manipulation. What kind of channel and what call I have to take when I have to report that. That is one. Okay. Now, it's important to have roles defined and documented in ITM policy for each stage of your IT asset management. Now, earlier, whatever roles we have seen that there is a primary role, there is a complementary role for each of those. But even within this, okay, though overview, nowhere it presents saying that no, you have, but there should be someone responsible. Okay, as an ITAM, I can review, as an ITAM, I can manage, I can probably interact and all that stuff. But when it comes to a field level work, or when it comes to implementation, unless I identify an in charge, or unless I identify a role which sees that that process is followed, or that has gone through that particular cycle, I'm at risk. Okay, and I don't have a proper evidence also saying that because as I speak about the ITAM, there are so many responsibilities. I can't just pinpoint saying, I can't keep on checking a sample saying that whether this thing has been gone through each of the process. Yeah. So even within this high level of 3, if there is a procurement, if there is a change management, if there is a disclosure or replacement, it's always better if you can identify a separate roles for that. Those roles, of course, will be reporting to the IT asset manager, but individually you should be having this. And most of the medium and large managers, as I was mentioning earlier, also they have this direct access to the management for better implementation, because that is so crucial. You are directly dealing, like as we have seen in the second or third slide, the changeover from tangible assets to intangible assets over a period of last 10-20 years. The same kind of responsibility when it comes to IT asset manager, if he is not in a position to directly interact with the management, and you speak about time lag and you speak about all those things, which will have a huge impact on that. Okay, but of course this is just a suggestive. It's not mandatory that they should have a direct access, but this is one of those best practices what we can think of. Okay, now coming to this ITM life cycle, and earlier we have seen stages at the high level. What are the different stages at the high level? Now coming to at the individual level. Now if I have to speak about each asset, now what is the purpose of IT asset cycle management? Why is that? I believe majority of you, at least somewhere during process part of your regular statutory audit or any kind of audit, would have come across a couple of things which are made part of your ERP or implemented part of your ERP, the procurement module. You have a deployment, okay, and of course maintenance and support may not be there. Maybe it's more of technical, but at least you have the procurement, you have deployment, and you have retirement. These 3 definitely you might come across in the regular non-IT assets as well. And so as in case of the IT asset life cycle, those 3 cycles. Apart from that, you have this maintenance and support. Okay, now I've just mentioned the purpose of the IT asset life cycle. One, of course, forecast the business or organizational needs, and obviously from there the process has started. And whenever we speak about, I say that this particular equipment is having a life of say 10 months or 1 year. So I need to have a mechanism where I can alert saying that in next 1 month I need to procure this. So I have to restart my retirement process or disposal process. And because you speak about various roles involved in it, or even if it is automated also, you have approvals to be taken care. So while you do that, you are taking care of replacement. Then once you speak about replacement, you are again considering the procurement as well to make a new purchases or replacement purchases. And being proactive. Of course, ITM, when we speak about interacting with various other roles, it has to be proactive rather than waiting for someone to communicate or someone mentioning about that. And IT services, this is where I was mentioning also ITSM equally plays important role when it comes to ITAM, IT service management. Okay, so that's also a separate role. In fact, various banks, as I've seen RFPs, they've given these 2 specific areas of proposals. I mean, saying that they want ITSM as a separate role or ITAM as a separate role. So that is itself is a different role, but many depending on the kind of organization, might be ITM might play both roles as well. Knowing the total cost of the ownership, until unless I get to see what is the maintenance cost, what is the support cost, what is the replacement cost, unless I get to see for each of the asset, I can't know what exactly is the cost of that asset. It's not about procurement. You can't say that my invoice price is maybe 10 lakhs. I can't say that the asset value is 10 lakh. There will be something like I might have to go for the maintenance, the warranty, additional external warranty, whatever we speak about, or the support, the patch management, the renewals, all those things by the end of a life. If I project the particular entire life of a particular asset, I need to consider all those valuations and then come up saying that this is my asset ownership cost, and that goes into your strategy, as I was mentioning earlier. Strategy, that's where before implementing this policy. So these are all things I decide on the IT asset life cycle. I need to work out all these things. And based on that, you might have to go for the future requirement, because in case of asset retirement, what exactly is. So unless I have this IT asset life cycle, unless I quantify, unless I evaluate each of those, unless I get a gross or aggregate cost of those, I can't perform all these things. So that is where your IT asset life cycle management plays important role. It's not about monitoring an asset or monitoring the performance of an asset. It's beyond that, the costing factor, the ROI factor, all those things that plays an important role. Yeah. So I've just taken up each of those aspects. So maybe another 10-15 minutes, 10 minutes I'll cover this, then we'll get into the audit module. Okay. And what exactly is the process? As I said, these three are already, you would have come across, where we speak about procurement and create a purchase order, predefine PO workflow. These are all maybe a regular activity as auditors for us. I mean, we cost center for budgets, approvals, and post-purchase inventory update, so and so. And this is one area where we could see many issues happening post-purchase inventory update. Okay, so whether that will be part of your live inventory or as a backup inventory. I mean, of course, when we speak about these things, like if I speak about what you call subscription model license, okay, wherein you have these renewals or you have additional license procured for the sake of future requirement kind of thing. So these are all I need to consider whether it should be part of my asset inventory, or if I have so-called what you call cost center model within my organization, then again, whether I should be adding part of my inventory, regular inventory, so that the stock movement is also monitored, so that the cost center, cost allocation happens along with the inventory movement as well. Okay, so that's about the procurement, as I said, which is very much regular in our activities. Now, deploy and discover. Deploy the assets and change state from inventory to in use, and this comes into the picture provided once you have procured, you're trained the respective staff whoever is using the asset owner, so-called asset owner, and you have taken a concurrence saying that he understood, and you are taking whatever declarations to be taken care. And once you have done that, everything, and procurement is not just about purchasing. As I said, once I cross upon the procurement, straight away it gets into the deployment stage, where the inventory is put to use, the asset inventory is put to use. So I need to ensure all those earlier steps, what I mentioned about saying training has been taken care, everything. It's like when I say ready to use, I have someone who is taking the responsibility of the asset, so-called IT asset owner. So if in case anything happens, I should have someone to be holding responsible. So he should not come out with an explanation saying that there's no proper training or proper implementation or installation of the particular asset. So once I end up that stage, I get into this change from inventory to in use. So this also plays role if I'm going with the cost center model, where I'm deploying these assets as part of my regular inventory than an asset inventory. Okay. Then discover the assets in the network. This again, your various ITM applications will take care, because once they are deployed, okay, that will be considered as an endpoint as in your ITM, so that it updates your dashboards saying that who is the IT asset owner, what is the idle time, what is the usage, all those aspects. It could be any kind of asset, could be laptop or whatever. And here, one more important point I've come across. In fact, one of the company, of course, we have done maybe 5-6 years back, wherein the BOID was the issue. Okay, because you have 3 shifts in that given company. Morning, maybe some 6 to 3 o'clock kind of shift, and another afternoon shift, and the evening shift, depending on the UK or Europe timings what they are supporting. So they have this BOID. Okay, they don't have a policy of BOID, but they allow BOIDs bring your own device. So where they allow the staff to bring their devices. Now the challenge where we, as part of my team, my audit, my team would have covered those, saying that these laptops are not labeled or these laptops are not identified. And then once I prepare a report, I get a response saying that these are all their own devices. Then I question about BOID policy. There is no BOID policy. So when I say about ITAM policy, I need to see the other IS policies, whether they are in place. If not, I need to make sure that I make that point in my report, saying that we are not holding responsibility with regard to those assets which were declared to be staff-owned assets kind of thing, so-called BOID. So it's always good if you can ensure, if you see that there is a BOID policy and they can segregate the asset owned by the company and the asset owned, because when I say about IT asset owner, okay, I see in the ITAM application saying that a particular IT asset owner is not configured, then I get to know that that guy is bringing his own laptop, and that will be challenging to create an evidence. I mean, unless I have something which says that, okay, these are the IT asset owners and these are the people who bring their own devices and they have given the declaration that has been fed into my ITAM this thing, because ITAM is not about physical hardware, all those things. It's also about software. So though it is BOID, he might be using certain applications of the company where I would have permitted. So I need to keep track of those through ITAM as well. And when I do so, if he is an IT owner, IT asset owner, or not an IT asset owner, that also plays an important role. So that's where your BOID policy comes in place. Okay. So these are the things which comes in when it comes to deployment and all, allocate software, hardware, and add relationship maps. This comes in your ITAM application where you map up with the IT asset owner or the user or whoever it is. Now, regular maintenance, the scheduled scans and audit history, audit logs. There is an interesting development happening when it comes to this audit log, not in terms of finance accounting model, that's altogether separate, but when we speak about RBI has made it mandatory. In fact, I'll display one particular clause, 3.1 of RBI Master Circular on IT cybersecurity, IT framework. They clearly mention that there should be a log which identifies the usage of the asset, okay, the all those maintenance aspect of the asset, all those things, it has to be captured. Now, as I said, many companies, they are going for this ITAM application for the reason that the audit logs is very much being taken care through that application, unless going with here again, sorry for overlapping, but these things just keeps on striking the mind. When we speak about audit logs, there is a redundancy happening, people taking backup from AWS, control S, so and so, and they don't know what exactly they are doing. I mean, there's a backup in one particular, because RBS's location should not be same, they've taken one more backup, and all those aspects we need to consider, and which one to be making part of my audit log, all those things. Okay, so as you can see, complete ownership tracking, the compliance and license management, depreciation calculation by initially once you decide upon the life that you start igniting, and the complete cost of ownership, as I said, the entire life cycle management. If I have to go with each of those points and value that, and in terms of cost factor, that's where I get to see the ownership cost, the exact cost, right? From procurement till my deploy, till my disposal, the entire cost factor has to be considered. That's where we call it as an ownership cost of that particular asset. Then of course support. This is where ITSM plays role, and also your the outsourcing service where we comply with the SOC 1, SOC 2 reports and all. Okay, so I'll be taking those things as part of my support. Okay, where I need to ensure that the agreements are linked to the software license. And this is one challenging area what we come across: the patch updation, the software maintenance, and especially those firewalls or antivirus kind of applications, where you always have this issue with the licenses. Okay, there's a even if you go into the local branch, you're not sure whether it is a subscription model of virus they have taken, or it's a bulk license what entity has taken, bank has taken, and deployed to various branches. Unless I see a document which links up those entire thing right from the policy till the implementation into the system, unless I satisfy myself in terms of the documentation and the procedure aspects, I can't say that everything is in place. And this is, I'm sorry to say, but many IS audits at the branch level are happening, which is not covering many of these areas. They're merely going with the checklist. Though if you detailedly go into the checklist, you'll see what kind of issues they are questioning, asking you to say complied with. Okay, so many risky areas we are taking up when I speak about this thing. In fact, I would rather take up one particular example. In fact, probably at the end of audit, I'll take up that example more apt with the ITAM audit what we are speaking about. Anyway, retirement and disposal. Yeah, of course, all the software allocated should be disposed. I mean, if the asset is being disposed, I need to ensure all those aspects about whether the software has been also been disposed of the asset, and while I'm changing it to the expiration stage, all those processes to ensure that my data is secure, the system labeling has been detached, okay, the IT asset owner is detached, all those aspects have to be taken. There is a list of checklist, I mean a detailed checklist which I have to ensure that everything is ticked, then only it comes to the stage of retirement or disposal. Okay, so this is about ITAM process at various stages. And just to highlight a key phrase, poor asset management and lack of control over IT inventory may lead to not just IT insecurity, not higher cost, improper risk assessment and compliance, legal issues, and of course overall performance. And as we have seen, not much of what you call so much of interest is being taken at the management level when it comes to such a sensitive area of ITAM. Yeah, it has picked up maybe a couple of years back, at least in our country. Other parts already they are way ahead. You can even get to the see the reports 15 years back on IT asset management audit done by the government level, not even at the private level. But of course, there are changes happening. Hopefully, that's where probably it's the right time that SIRC come out with this kind of session where we might look into this aspect as well. What kind of role I can play and what are those opportunities I can grab upon these things. But ultimately, this is one important aspect you need to consider, because if I'm not managing my IT asset properly, IT inventory properly, I'm dealing with all those security issues, legal issues, performance issues, everything is at stake. Yeah. Now let's get into the audit aspect of the ITM. Any questions at this point of time? Because all I've mentioned is more of what exactly is ITAM and what are the technical aspects of ITAM. Yeah. Fine. Fine. We'll proceed with the audit aspect. If any questions, anyway, you can ask at the end. Yeah. At this point, again, I'll be interested to pose one question. If you permit me, just a minute. I want to check another aspect of this audit as well. 1 second. Yeah. Let me share the screen. Yeah. So you have another code, please. Earlier, I had very few responses. Now I request all of you to participate. And this is one more Menti code. Just type in this particular code, and you'll have a couple of questions. So request to participate. Yeah, let's have a timer for this as well. So just to mention the question, as you can see, you just need to visit that particular website, menti.com. Use the code 994727770. You'll be thrown up with a couple of questions. Have you conducted internal audit, or have you been a part of any of those teams? That's one question what I've asked. And second, more important, do you give weightage to each task while quoting for internal audit? When I say quoting, like say regulatory compliances, or could be asset verification or reviewing of control, all those aspects. Now, did you consider that? Have you equal, I mean, considerable weightage before you give a quote for the internal audit? So we'll just take another 10 seconds, then we'll proceed with. Okay, let me present the results for you. Okay, Of course, we can see comfortably majority of the people are already been part or have conducted. But what makes interesting is this question: do you have equal weightage? I mean, have you considered the weightage like asset verification review? Of course, maybe 50-50 or little more. Fortunately, good that you are considering. Yeah, now I can see little change while I present this. Anyway, so let's proceed with the presentation at this point while taking a lead from whatever we had understood. Okay. Now, why I mentioned that is, of course, once we get into the opportunities, you will find why that question makes important. Maybe I can display again the same question at the time of opportunities. But now, when we speak about ITAM, objective, scope, and procedure, I've just tried to split those into three different aspects. One, if it varies, the kind of objective might vary depending on for what you are conducting this ITAM. Is it part of your internal audit? As I was mentioning about, did you consider this as part of saying that no, management wants you to conduct IT asset management audit as well as part of your internal audit? Now, in that case, what becomes important is whether has an effective IT asset management system in place, because you are doing this audit as part of management for the purpose of management, for the benefit of stakeholders, or for the benefit of management, whoever is it. Okay, so that is where it becomes important to see how effective an IT asset management system is in place. Okay, especially for those hardware devices, and of course while complying with the regulatories and all those support program delivery. Okay, but if you are dealing in terms of regulatory compliance, like say if we speak about banking, or could be as a management itself, they wanted an external source to find out where exactly they are, what kind of value addition it is, and that's where it becomes important to check the adequacy of IT asset management framework. Okay, effectiveness, because as I said again, the scope might vary as you're taking up this as an auditor or an examiner. Depending on the role what you take, the scope again might change or objective might change. But if I see the overall kind of thing, and to make it at least little clear about those things, I can say that if I'm an internal part, I'll be looking for the effectiveness of the IT asset management. And if I'm external part, I'll be looking for the adequacy of those IT asset management. That is where your documentation, the policy review, the implementation, the procedures, all those aspects, the interviews, everything comes into place. Okay, this is about the overall objective of your IT audit. Now, moving ahead, the scope. Obviously, it takes lead from the objective for which you have taken and the purpose for which you have been appointed as an IT asset management auditor. But saying so again, there are a couple of things what you have to consider. In general, this is just an indicative kind of thing. In general, you have a review procedure, a reviewing of procedures, the processes, and the practices followed in IT asset management while covering the IT cycle, that is the IT asset life cycle, acquisition, maintenance, disposal of IT assets, and whether they are in line with your ITM policy. Okay, so by saying so, it is also imperative that you are also considering the standards what it suggests, because just because policy says this thing, I may not, of course, again coming back to the scope, depending on the scope. If I'm an examiner, my scope might consider the standards, the industry standards, all those frameworks like NIST framework, all those things might play an important role. Okay, but ultimately it's again the objective plays an important. But what makes important is when I consider an ITM audit, I'll not look for the controls. Okay, most of the time, at least if I say 90% of the scope never mentions anything about the IT security controls, because that itself is separate area. When we speak about controls, you're going beyond the scope of management of asset. Okay, it's like I mean, how exactly it is working. I mean, I'm going beyond my ITM scope. It's like I'm considering the IS or IT audit kind of scope. As I was mentioning earlier, also IT audit is like mother of all those things. It's like whole of technology audit, which includes IS audit, which includes ITM audit. But when I speak about ITM audit, obviously I don't want to get into that. So you should be very careful, because I've come across banks giving information systems audit, and somewhere they mention about this part, sorry, ITM audit, where they mention about security controls. Okay, now if that is included, what kind of additional calls you have to take? I mean, what kind of standards you have to report? Or it goes beyond, because if I'm speaking about ITM, probably I'm addressing certain cyber security frameworks or something like released by RBI. But if I'm going beyond that, I might have to consider many other master circulars. Could be information security, could be IT framework, all those things. So that plays an important role while ensuring that your scope is clear about what exactly you're doing. ITM audit means that is ITM audit, the areas what we mentioned in the first para, not anything beyond which goes into the IT information technology audit, which controls includes the security controls. Yes. So if you can make this point, at least you are on the safe side when you're trying to create those evidences with regard to the ITM. Okay, that's one caution you have to exercise. Just to give an example, I've just indicated a scope copied from one of the reports. So this is how usually you might mention your objective, saying that to determine whether adequate and effective. Of course, I've included both the aspects of effectiveness and the adequacy, considering both internal and external audits, whatever I've discussed earlier. To determine whether adequate and effective IT asset management process and controls are in place in order to maintain the integrity of the IT assets, not information. Controls in place in terms of integrity of IT assets. There is a difference between the word what I mentioned here is IT security controls in terms of information as well, but here I'm only considering the IT asset, not the information. Yeah, that's the difference. While meeting the organization, of course, regulatory is RBI as appointed or any other bank appointed, then you might have to refer that regulatory as well as part of your objective. That's one. Second, of course, assurance services, what we regularly do in terms of audit, saying that inventory and records are complete and accurate. Okay, so this is the overall objective. That's what we have mentioned earlier, also in the earlier slide. And the scope, obviously, I'll try to limit to the information technology, hardware, and software inventories. Okay, so I'm very clear in terms of mentioning my scope, not to include any of those security aspects or not to include information security aspects at all, and included in IT asset management practices in place of so and so, whatever period of audit, or usually a designated period you'll be mentioning with regard to the audit. Obviously, you'll be covering only that particular part of audit. It's not like year-end kind of thing. Okay. In the audit, focus was on systems and practices used in the governance, management, control, and oversight of the entire IT hardware and software assets. Okay. So now you're making your scope in line with the objective, and you're also making clear by virtue of this particular para, saying you're not responsible for any of those information securities or information security controls. Okay, and you might have to give a list, because usually when we come across a audit, we come across an instances where, as I was mentioning about BOID, that is bring your own device kind of situations, where I might say that I've excluded these from the assets verified. These are not part of my IT asset management audit. Or I might mention those equipment which are taken on a temporary purpose kind of thing. Okay, could be projectors or kind of thing. Okay, so I might have to mention those things clearly, saying whether I've included this in my testing or I've excluded. So I have to be very clear in those, in terms of mentioning those disclaimers. And of course, the audit period. So I've just given as an indicative purpose. This is how we'll be capturing as part of your audit ITM report in the initial phrases of your executive summary. Yeah. And coming into procedure, I've not made it much detail. Of course, I prepared a checklist which I can read out, but I've not made a detailed kind of procedure, because as I was mentioning, it's like a regular asset management or a fixed asset review or a regular audit what we consider, provided it has certain additional cycles which I might have considered. So that is where the audit procedures comes place the policy, that is gathering evidence on implementation of ITM policy, which of course requires review of documents. We conduct interview with ITM staff. Okay, when I say ITM staff, IT asset owners, IT asset users, the support staff, the maintenance staff, all those roles, whatever we have in IT asset management. And of course, physical observations and the transaction testing. Now, when we say transaction testing, shall be based on us ensuring that the asset has passed through approved ITM lifecycle. So when we say transaction testing, if I pick up a couple of assets, I'm ensuring that the life cycle, that is the procurement till the disposal, everything has been policy-wise documented. That has been made as a procedure as your ITM application or any kind of process what you follow. And if in case come across the sample of disposed assets, I ensure that everything has been passed through, the asset has passed through all those life cycles. So sample, most of the time we consider this thing, and here Here is where there will be a couple of red flags, just like your regular audit as well, identifying those assets which are out of your requirement, business requirement, which are just purchased, and we are not sure whether it is supporting, because it's not about asset management. You are taking a risk beyond the data manipulation happening through those equipment. So all those become so very sensitive for us. So I need to ensure that all the assets, I mean, I'll sample those transactions where I might doubt. Say, for example, I speak about maybe some flash drives, or any mobile flash drive, what you call firewalls, or could be a couple of routers kind of thing, or even the laptops as well. Usually certain, like say if you speak about Citibank and all, they don't have probably the ratio of procurement versus leasing is 80% lease and 20% procurement when it comes to laptops or any kind of equipment what they use in the bank. Okay, so there I have to ensure whether it has been properly tagged, whether it will fall into my life cycle. If not, what is that additional measure I have to ensure that there is a proper tracking happening at the ITM model when it comes to information, especially the processing through that particular equipment. So audit procedure, as I was mentioning, is more of general in terms, but what becomes details is especially those areas when I speak about storage of cloud or those technical equipments, and all that, of course, I'll display as part of my checklist anyway. Okay. Now, this, as I was mentioning, the audit checklist, this is of course again an indicative kind of thing. Now, whether there is an IT asset management policy, very important, whether it is there, developed and maintained regularly. Okay, I can't say that there is an IT asset management policy developed in 2010 and never will look back into that. And meanwhile, I've gone into cloud, I've gone into some other additional assets, I've gone into various kind of IoTs and all that stuff. Okay, then I can't say that my policy is proper. I need to ensure that the policy is there, developed, and also up to date. So there is a version management, there is a review. Okay, it has to pass through those review, IT governance, approvals, and all those documentation process. When we speak about the policy implementation in information security, the same goes with the ITM also. It's not about having a policy. Okay, it's also whether it updated, because many a times we come across such things. In fact, so funny that someone has shared a draft policy to me as part of my audit. So it becomes so, I mean, so loosely taken up this particular aspect when it comes to policy. Someone might have, in fact, one interesting factor I would rather mention, I don't want to name the name bank, maybe it would have read in the part of my profile, but while doing a management audit, one of those things is to review the IS policy of the bank. Okay, but they are reluctant to share any of the policies. They were actually sharing the first index sheet, the content sheet, saying that to make a call based on that. Okay, so that becomes very sensitive. So unless I get, that will be my disclaimer. I can't even call it as disclaimer, because when I say management has to be entirely, so my point could be little harsh. I would have qualified that. Okay, so not about having policy, how it is drafted, how it is developed, whether it is being maintained, whether it is being updated, and whether it is of course communicated as well. Very much important. Verify whether the organization maintains an IT asset register. Now, this is one point which I would rather avoid, because we know the status of this in regular asset audit register itself, asset audit. How many of us confidently say that those files what we have reviewed have really implemented this in a religious way, the way the format looks for maybe regulatory kind of requirement. When we are speaking about IT, which is not just about asset, it speaks beyond that. It has the data, it has information, it has all those I mean aspects of the organization, very patents and all that information. Okay, so unless I have a proper register, and that's where again you have the support applications which takes care of tracking the asset model and keeping track of serial number and all stuff, licenses, how many licenses you have, everything. So it's either you can have a physical register of that, or you can have a software, or you can have it in a spreadsheet also. Doesn't matter, as long as you have the entire list of those things. Okay. Now, why exactly it is required to classify, categorize, and label is because certain asset may be, like say if I speak about any keyboard or mouse kind of thing, I don't need to classify it as what you call with high life. Okay, usually they'll not have a much life, but it just becomes an asset inventory only, but doesn't fall into my life cycle kind of model. So that might have classified it as a separate category, a low kind of category. Okay. So again, at this point probably I'll display one interesting spreadsheet to you. 1 second. So usually a company follows this asset maturity assessment tool. Okay, this is again taken from the public source available in the Google. So as you can see, for each of those, okay, they have the asset management plan, they have the leadership team, all those things. Okay, they classified each of those. And if in case I'm trying to go for asset management plan, and what is the point allocation what I have, like say you have when it comes to having the content, whether it is available or so, if I'm going with some content, and whether the target is reached, because it speaks about evidences, develop, communicate, resource, and action in case of IT asset management plan. So it's speaking about the communication with the staff, what kind of documentation. So if I'm going with maturity module, I might see that what kind of presentation it might have, and in terms of overall score or the summary results and all that. Likewise, when we, for each of the asset management application, I mean, each of those companies, they might have this asset maturity module. This, as I said, at the time of strategy only, ITAM our asset manager will create this particular thing, so that will be helpful to present in terms of whether it is in line with the business model, and also in terms of quantifying the values and whatever it is. Okay, so this is one maturity model. What you can let me go to the presentation back. Yeah, so whether they are categorized, classified, all that stuff, and verify and confirm that all the assets are procured or maintained in your IT asset register. That's another important aspect. Inventory, IT asset inventory properly. Okay, and whether there is a process of IT asset verification and tracking. This is, I'm saying, out of audit. I mean, as part of your internal control as well, whether it is there, if it is so, whether it is being performed, and these are all audit checklist I'm mentioning, because my policy says that these are there, and unless I see that this is there by going through some checklist, some indicative checklist I follow, so that will help me identify if I have to go for some sample, if I have to create any evidences out of those, because each of those checklists, it's not just yes or no. You have to have substantive evidence saying that why you have said this yes or why you have said this no. Yeah, verify that the assets are maintained as per their life cycle, which means those assets that have completed the life cycle must be decommissioned. Backup tapes, all those things. Of course, backup tapes now it's a age-old kind of concept, but still a couple of things. More of your cloud where you say a full backup or incremental backup or differential backup, various kind of backups people follow. You have a data center backup, again you have an endpoint backup. Even within backup, you have many things. That is where I was mentioning earlier also, when I speak about these kind of audits, little bit of awareness about that technology or IT terms will always be helpful, so that I don't buy anything what client says when it comes to implementation. Verify whether all the assets are labeled, whether it is in server room or data center or at any endpoint level. As I was saying, this is one point of BOID issue what we face. If it is not labeled, the particular things have to match with the list as per BOID. Those who are labeled are matching with my asset inventory. That is how I ensure that they are available in the inventory. Of course, physical verification also. Physical verification might be a little challenging, because if you are dealing with a company which is on shift, or even otherwise you are getting an audit where the asset owner is on travel and is allowed to carry the asset with him, and you might for you to establish that asset is there, you might follow a different way, maybe a remote audit kind of thing, getting the logical idea of that particular company asset and trying to map with your inventory, because you have the serial numbers, you have the licenses of those applications used in that. So remotely you access, you get those screenshots, verify with the IT inventory what you already have, to ensure that the IT asset owner has been defined as part of the ITA. Okay, so again, that's where your more challenging comes into, is the way you map your physical verification with the IT asset inventory, and that is where you require a team and a well-educated team. And verify that all the assets are maintained as per their life cycle. That is, for this again repeated point, I'm sorry for that. Verify whether the organization has an acceptable usage policy. Yes, IT asset is held responsible for fair usage of asset. This is one more important policy of your IS policies, and this is also being vaguely defined as part of your IS policy. It has to be very precise along with the rules, roles of those users, and what is the usage as a role. And then I have to take a declaration as per the usage policy for each of those IT asset owner, and verify all the assets, all the software that is implemented and is legally acquired, and software license inventory is up to date and valid. Now, do we check this particular point when I go? I really, I'm not sure whether I can confidently say that when a person visits a bank to perform an IS audit, at that point of time, did they ever consider what kind of applications each of those system is running, whether they are licensed, or is it that they have got a list of those inventory from the register and they are satisfied? No, is it not? I have to validate that with the system. And I'm sure if you perform this religiously, you will see that at least I don't want to comment on, but definitely you'll have majority of issues in that particular aspect, especially when it comes to applications or the software licenses. Yeah, so this becomes more imperative, more effective when it comes to ITM audit, because that's where we speak about the software, the inventory when it comes to ITM, the importance of the software inventory. Yeah, so licenses, whether it is updated, whether it is a bulk license or the individual license, whether it's a subscription model or what kind of model you are going for, this, all those things plays important. Yeah, as I was mentioning here also, special focus is required in case of policies such as BOID, where it may be verified whether it is included or excluded from the responsibilities of IT asset manager, because I have to precise saying that if ITAM is kept out of those things, and that is where you should be very cautious saying that, because in BOID you might have a particular managerial level which might be a pay grade, high pay grade kind of guy, which you don't want to make part of my IT asset manager review. And as I was saying, say for example, a CFO is carrying a laptop, and as a BOID policy is carrying that, or otherwise also, if he is excluded, whether that has been documented properly, because it's above pay grade and they don't want to have that as part of ITM monitoring. So for some reason, for a confidentiality issue, could be anything. Okay, I have to ensure that whether that has been agreed as part of policy, that has been agreed and passed through those approvals. So there's one part important aspect you might have to consider. If the ITM includes storage devices like cloud, verify whether the information classification is defined and implemented. This is where I don't want to want to have more of redundant or a low qualified data being classified into my cloud storage. And of course, maybe as an ITAM auditor, I may not be interested in what kind of classification it does. Whether I'm only worried about whether the cloud storage, if it is defined as part of my ITAM, whether it is passed through my life cycle, which is passed through all those approval processes, that's made my interest will be. But if I'm playing a role of an examiner, not as an auditor, because I'm going to advise the management on after my review, I need to consider these aspects as well, whether the data has been classified as per my sensitivity or severity of the particular data, it's confidential, internal or public, etc. Have some question here. Yeah, I'll address all the questions. Maybe last 15 minutes we can keep it for questions. I'll quickly run through this. Yeah, now coming to the tools, and so far whatever we dealt with is the scope, objective, the procedures, the kind of indicative checklist. Okay. Now, audit tools, I don't suggest as an auditor we follow an auditor, because there are the ways where, like an ITM audit tool run by the company, I might run my own audit tool, of course, by following series of approvals. If I run through to compare my report with the ITM report, that is one way of doing, but that is possible if I'm part of my internal audit team or something like that. Okay. But usually companies won't suggest support those kind of things. So obviously I'll not be allowed to install a tool which performs the equal ITM audit mechanism and then go with a comparative kind of thing. So what we are left with is what best we can make use of those IT frameworks defined by ITAL. ITAL is the Information Technology Infrastructure Library. Okay, so you have these various framework. In that they have this ITAM and ITSM framework as well. Okay, so IT asset management is part of the service transition lifecycle stage. Okay, this is as part of those 5 life cycles what ITL framework mentioned. You have within that service transition lifecycle, and within that ITM is one such module. Okay, but I might take clue about what exactly that framework is speaking in terms of what role this ITAM is playing. Okay, so if you see ITAL describes processes, procedures, the main purpose of ITAL is to define the process, whether it is organization specific or technology specific and all. Of course, it establishes the baseline from which a particular organization can plan and all those compliances requirement. Suggestive framework kind of thing. But what I'll be interested is what exactly that is saying about IT asset management. Like ITAL 4 released in I think 2020, if I'm correct. There's a guide to practices. I think it's published even again updated recently also. The purpose of IT asset management practice is to plan and manage the full life cycle. Sorry for the mistake. Full life cycle of all IT assets to help the organization maximize value, control costs, manage risk, support asset lifecycle decision making, and meet regulatory and contractual requirements. Now, this if an objective or if a scope is defined, you might again, if I have to go with the best practices, I need to ensure whether it is in line with this particular suggestive thing. Okay, if in case I want to mention something as part of my report, which might be a benchmark or which might be limitation, I can probably refer to this. Similarly, NIST also has come out with its own publication, a special publication on IT asset management. So what it says is, while a physical asset management system can tell you the location of a computer, it cannot answer questions like what operating systems are our laptop running or which devices are vulnerable to the latest threat. An effective ITAM solution can tie together physical and virtual assets and provide management with a complete picture of what, where, and how assets are being managed. This is the entire essence of ITAM so far, whatever we're discussing about. So ITAM enhances visibility for security analysts. Of course, that's a value addition kind of service what it provides, which leads for better asset utilization and security. That's the analysis phase of ITAM. But otherwise, as you can see, it is so important. It gives a complete picture of what, where, and how. That is where ITAM policy also speaks about. Yeah. Again, we have various ITAM standards as well published by ISO IAC. Okay, and 19770 the series 19770, and the latest one is 19770-11, which of course provides requirement for bodies providing audit and certification of IT asset management. So this is where probably I might go into, because it speaks about more of providing audit and certification, what kind of guidance it gives. Otherwise, other process speaks about the standards or review mechanism, the overview of so and so, the guidelines for mapping. These are more of technical, but definitely will be of help before I take up an ITAM to understand what exactly those areas what it is addressing. Okay, so this international standard organization. This is one 19770, which you can consider. Okay, now this is where the earlier question what it posed in Mentimeter might be apt at this point of time as well. If I'm looking for an opportunity, is it that a new opportunity what we are seeing, or was it existing even before? Maybe IT asset management might be new, but not in asset management. Now, what are the areas you cover as part of your internal audit? Is it that you take care of only regulatory requirement, or you have ensure the financial requirements or financial statement preparation, or you speak about controls? What exactly your scope of internal audit? Have you ever defined that? If so, have you tried to include asset management review? Okay, not IT, I'm saying as a regular thing. Is it part of, like as you've seen in the earlier, out of 21, around 9 people I mentioned that they have not considered this, and they don't do weightage, individual weightage kind of thing. Okay, so we need to consider this point if I'm quoting the internal audit saying that whether asset management, leave over the IT will come second, but at least asset management, then comes the secondary part of IT. Because, and have you ever considered about taking care of this details of tangible and intangible assets of CARO clause? Now, can I make use of this particular clause to ensure that even ITAM is made part of? Because I can't ignore this point saying whenever it is an intangible asset, I can't ignore about the asset register updation about ITAM, whatever asset register is being updated. I do understand that there is a register which speaks about physical inventory, all the stuff, but not to an extent that it matches with the requirement about because I believe a notification is already issued, which is of course coming from the next year onwards, where they might also want to see the audit trial of the asset usage when it comes to intangible assets. And are you gauging your opportunity with the return on investment? I would suggest rather no, because we are still in the earlier stages. So if you get an opportunity, don't gauge in terms of what what is that return on investment, or return on investment in the sense what kind of time you are spending on that particular audit. Don't compare that, because you are taking up a new challenge, new opportunity, which might open up major areas. As we have seen already, Big 4, Big 10, Big 20 homes, they have already started this particular area of consultancy and audits in terms of ITM. So why not? So don't measure in terms of what is that they're paying. Maybe it's part of your internal audit, doesn't matter, take it up. You're gaining your experience, you're probably improvising yourself, and then you might specialize in that, then come out with your own package of ITM audit as well. And other opportunities, as I was mentioning about RBI in its master circular, has mentioned about this particular trials exist for IT assets satisfying its business requirements. It has to ensure, auditor has to ensure that the bank has to ensure that audit trials exist for IT assets satisfying its business requirements, including, of course, regulatory, legal, facilitating audit, and so on. So that is one aspect, because we speak about software anyway. Then you have another cybersecurity framework issued by RBI. This is, of course, they have mentioned it as an indicative but not exhaustive list of base point kind of thing. But what makes interesting is it speaks about inventory management of business IT assets, which says maintain an up-to-date inventory of assets, including business data, information including customer data information, business applications, supporting IT infrastructure facilities, hardware, software, network devices, key personal services indicating their business, so and so, so and so, so and so. So this framework, as suggested, especially for those units falling in level 1 kind of thing. Okay, they have classified 4 different levels even for this, but at least if it is level 1 and I need to ensure this as part of my cybersecurity, ITAM is part of my cybersecurity framework. And just to mention, Bank of India has issued a RFP last year, ITM. As I was mentioning earlier also, if you go through the RFPs, sorry, I think it's the wrong slide, 1 second. Yeah. So if you go through the RFP of this is Bank of India RFP, if you go through the technical clauses, okay, this is I have highlighted only the asset management, inventory asset management when it comes to application IT assets, IT asset management. Okay, if you go to this particular technical list, you will understand what exactly ITM role is looking for. This is the role, the ad they have given, the tender they have given for the ITM and ITSM role. But as an ITM auditor, I might get some knowledge, or I might see what is the scope I'm looking for, what is the objective I'm looking for, by just going through these technical aspects. So they will help me identify what exactly I have to do when I go for an ITM audit of a bank. Okay, so this is one technical list. Of course, this is very much available in your public source. You just need to search RFP BOI ITAM. You'll get to see this particular file. You can, yeah. And coming back to presentation. Yeah, and of course, SBI cap also has come with. I'm just quoted few, and as you can see, this is the latest one, and this is going to gain the momentum as I've captured this particular screenshot. Now, what is interesting is, of course, this is based on the baseline from 2019, their project up to 2024. What is interesting is the area what they have highlighted, saying that there will be a high market for IT asset management, and India is part of that. Yeah, so this is one a very optimistic kind of presentation which we can take up. Probably initial stages what we are in. Maybe once we pick up in this particular area, we can also make something out of it. Yeah, so let's debate. It's time for more learning. It's time for Q&A. Yeah, let me just go through the questions. In one case, due to phishing, a company incurred loss for which process owner who opened spam mail was held responsible. In other case, notice mail from income tax department went to spam and process owner did not accept responsibility for not responding to spam. How to tackle this contradiction? This again, as I mentioned, I mean, speaking from the perspective of ITAM kind of thing. One second. Yeah, speaking from ITAM, whether the person who is eligible to own that particular IT asset, is the role defined? Okay, and whether the policies speaks about the responsibility, or is there any awareness training being conducted regularly? Now, if you can, yeah, I thought it's my screen being scared. Yeah, so if you can prove saying that the proper training, awareness camp, awareness training or implementation, the first stage of asset modeling, whatever we've seen, whether it is not being followed, that's one way. If we have to support the employee and try to handle this particular case, I need to show, create and provide an evidence saying that the controls are not proper at the organizational level, leave about the individual asset level. Okay, so policy of IS security and what is the asset ownership definition, what they've carried. And the third thing, whether there is a regular awareness training kind of thing. Okay, so yeah, again, it's a legal aspect what you are mentioning about whether we can win the case or not. But at least depending on, I don't think there are any instances where employee was charged, at least to my knowledge. Though there are a couple of cases reported from Europe and all, where the company was held responsible and paid. But as I said, this is more of legal aspect based on evidences what you can create, saying that the responsibility falls under the management, and ultimately, if there is a proper checklist, there is a proper process, and I've overridden that particular policy. I've override that particular process and try to go beyond my power, and then I've ended up in this particular aspect. Then I might be held responsible. But if I can ensure that I provide those evidences, I think there shouldn't be any issue. He can still challenge it. Is there any difference between IT policy, ITM policies? Of course, of course. Basically, we'll not have something called IT policy. IT policy is a group of those policies. Could be IS policy, as I was mentioning, a DOID policy, usage policy, password policy, all those policies put together. Okay, and including ITM policy. If I put all these policies put together, that will become my IT, information technology policy, which is a bunch of all these policies. So there is a mother of information technology. If I have to use loosely, that will be mother of all those policies. ITM policy very specific about your IT asset management. Okay, the way the life cycle is designed, the way the roles are defined, the responsibilities are defined, all those things will form part of your ITM policy. Can ITM audit be done by bank, statutory auditor, or is a special assignment for systems audit? See, as of now, fortunately, there is no such part considering in LFR which speaks about the IT asset management. Okay, might comment upon the controls in terms of asset and all. Okay, risk-based audit kind of thing, but definitely not in depth of touching upon the IT aspect. Yeah, it is a special audit, but that's what I was more worried about, because I've come across people, they were doing like left and right all those systems audit of banks. I've come across a guy who said about 250 systems audits they have done for a past 1.5 years, and that's more worry, because it's not just a checklist based of audit what we are dealing with. We are dealing with confirmation on those IT frameworks what RBI has released. We're dealing with confirmation on those IS policies. Okay, it's way beyond, including one such as your ITAM as well, where it speaks about the licenses, the ownership, the equipment, the security, all that aspects, and that's where we should be very more cautious while taking that assignment, considering the cost, what we, the fee, what they pay, and the risk what we are taking. To be very honest, I don't know how we can digest that, but it's going beyond the kind of risk what we can take. Yeah, it's my honest personal opinion, not a comment on anyone, but that's what at least going with the if you independently precisely, in fact, the one way I suggest is, if you are, let's assume you are doing a peer review of information systems audit done by another chartered accountant. Okay, you are taking up the scope, you are taking up the audit objectivity, you are taking up the policy behind your systems audit by the RBA or by the bank. Okay, and you are taking up the report of your fellow CA who has done the systems audit of that particular branch. Now, as an independent auditor, what kind of opinion you frame? You honestly think it is fitting to that? You come out with your own opinion. That is what you will see what kind of risk we are taking. Okay, so go for an independent review of an IS audit as a unbiased kind of thing, and compare with the scope or objective IS audit. You yourself will see what kind of risk we are taking. Yeah. So any other question? We have another last 5 minutes.
So these are the questions from the members. So if you want, we can move it.
Okay, sure.
We'll check and check.
Yeah, sure. Meanwhile, let me check if I can add anything in between. because as I was saying, my this is more of dry subject, which of course more of audit related. So many of you are already been expert of this thing. So it's only that the way you touch upon those technical aspects. So if nothing much, we can.
Yes, sir. We can close the session, sir. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much, and it's my privilege to present before members of SIRC of ICAI. And I thank you all the participants for being active. Good to see the number of participants sticking to the screen, and hope for more opportunities for me to present before you people.
Definitely, sir. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward for more sessions with you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.